Hey guys, Coach Michael here again at Starting Strength Boston, and it's time for another one of these programming videos. In the last video, I talked about the novice linear progression, laid out why you should run it. This is going to be an extension of that video. So this is the late novice / early intermediate phase, and I've drawn this lovely tree right here as a nice little visual cue, if you will. So the novice linear progression and this late novice early intermediate phase are basically like, people refer to it as building the base of your strength. So if this is your training and you're expanding upwards, the NLP is kind of this right here, this little tree trunk, and this late novice early intermediate is like right at the top of the tree trunk. And then after that, you can branch on out to whatever you want to do, this way, that way, all the way up to the sky if you want to. Just go full Icarus. A lot of people do. And I really think of this phase of training as an extension of the NLP, because you're still going to get pretty fast gains. And I really recommend that you still take advantage of those fast gains and drive your strength up as much as possible. So in the NLP, we're doing sets of 5. Once you reach this phase, we're kind of tapering down to maybe sets of 3, maybe some singles. And I'll get into that at the end of this video, or in the latter half rather. So I'm going to kind of approach this just like this book, Practical Program for Strength Training. The first half or so of the video, I'm going to lay some general principles. And then the last part is going to be programming templates, just like in this book. Practical programming, contrary to popular belief, is not just a book of like, this is the program that you should run once you pass the NLP. It's those training templates are suggestions and examples of how to organize training. There is no right or wrong program for any single person. There are actually many different ways that you can make progress after completing the NLP. Things get a lot more specific to the individual at that point. Let's go over a couple of core principles here, very important ones. To reiterate from the previous video, we still have the SAID principle, specific adaptation to impose demand. We're still trying to get generally strong, so we're using the same movements. Nothing really has changed there. We're still squatting, benching, pressing, and deadlifting. SRA, stress recovery adaptation. So we have a little bit of change going on there. During the early novice phase, we're recovering every 48 hours. Say you're training Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're adding weight to the bar each session. At this point now, our SRA curve has kind of lengthened. So it takes longer to recover in between doses of stress, and that means that we're gonna have to take a little bit longer between jumps. So we're not gonna add weight Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're either adding weight Monday and Friday, or we're just adding weight once a week, so like just Monday or just Wednesday, just Friday. The day doesn't matter. So I like to think of stress as filling a cup, essentially. So during the novice linear progression, this is my cup, right? I drink one of these every single day, or every 3 days, and that's enough stress for me to make progress. It's kind of like drinking coffee, I'm getting my caffeine fix, and then over time I'm building up a tolerance. So as I'm building up my tolerance, I need more caffeine, but the problem is I only have so much space in my stomach. So let's pretend that I only have space in my stomach for like 1 cup of coffee every 48 hours. I've got a very small bladder. So I drink my 1 cup of coffee, I get my caffeine fix, I'm good to go. 48 hours later, drink another cup of coffee, get my caffeine fix, it's awesome. And then over time, I need more caffeine to get the same fix, because I'm building up my tolerance to caffeine, right? So I need this much caffeine, except I can still only drink 1 cup of caffeine per day because of my tiny bladder. So the size of my bladder doesn't change, right? But the amount of caffeine that I need to drink to get a caffeine fix does increase. So now it takes me 2 or 3 cups of coffee to get the same caffeine high. So now I need this much caffeine to make progress. So as a novice, you might do a Monday workout, and then by Wednesday you're recovered, ready to train again and set a new PR. But as a late novice, you might do your Monday workout, and then you go to Wednesday and you're not quite recovered. So you do like another tiny dose of stress here. And then by Friday you're recovered and you can hit a new PR. Or if you're an early intermediate, you do this Monday workout, you have to train again Wednesday and Friday to get enough stress. And then you wrap back around here. And by the following Monday, that's where your new PR is. So with these principles in mind, we can create our optimal training program. And so lucky for us, the NLP is the optimal training program when you're a novice. And you've already done that, so you already have a little bit of data to build off of for this next step. So going from here, we know that stress needs to increase. So throughout the NLP, stress is increasing because we're adding 5 pounds each workout. So we're getting stronger over time. And there's a lot that goes into the term stress. I'm going to make a whole other video on that. stress, kind of progressive overload people talk about it as. But that has to increase in some way over time for us to get stronger. Also going forward, we're gonna make the smallest change possible. So since we've already been running the NLP, we've had 3 sets of 5 for our squat, press, and bench press, and 1 set of 5 for our deadlift. We're just gonna make small changes moving up from there because we know that that's already been working. And we're gonna do this on a lift by lift basis. So like if your squat stalls out, don't change every single lift to Texas method all of a sudden, just change your squat. All right, so now that all that boring garbage is out of the way, let's get down to brass tacks, pal. Let's check out some of these example templates here. And these are all gonna follow this philosophy right here, running it out, which is outlined in the practical programming book where they talk about the Texas method. So the idea of running it out is basically you have your 5 rep PRs already established from the NLP, right? So we're gonna keep on adding weight and just run the weight up as high as we can. And as we do that, we're gonna taper the reps down. So we're gonna do like 3s, doubles, singles. It's basically like classic linear periodization. So each of these templates is gonna be operating on that philosophy. We're just trying to have this last for like another 1 to 3 months and run the weight up as high as possible so we can establish some rep PRs in different rep ranges. And then from there, on your tree, if you remember, when you get to your different branches or leaves or whatever, that's where you can start using those PRs as data and kind of manipulate your program from there. So it's just giving us an extended set of data beyond 3 sets of 5. All right, let's start with the squat because that's the most important lift. In this example right here, we've got a 28-year-old male. So I'm gonna break these down by different demographics because this advice will change based on your demographic and kind of based on like the absolute weight where you fail or get close to failing. I prefer to not fail reps at all. So this here is operating off the assumption that we did this week of training, right? This is your last week of the NLP. 3 sets of 5 at 250, 3 sets of 5 at 255, and then on Friday, 3 sets of 5 at 260. And we're operating under the assumption that this 260 was like pretty darn grindy and heavy. So we're making a preemptive change to avoid failing reps under any circumstances. So this is our Monday right here. We are just adding 5 pounds from the heavy grindy Friday. So we got 3 sets of 5 at 265. That's gonna be like pretty tough, pretty difficult, right? So on Wednesday, we're gonna make the smallest change possible and add this light day. 3 sets of 5 at 215, which is about 80%. And so in this example, I'm using the full 80%. I'm gonna do some other examples where the percentages will change based off the demographic. And then on Friday here, I'm assuming that this person is like a lifter. So if you're a lifter, like you're really into this and you take it very seriously and you really wanna progress and you're very hard-headed, you can just go right up to 270 and make a jump right here. So you're adding weight twice a week now at this point. And then the following week, you would make the same sort of jumps, follow the same template. So do 275 for 3 sets of 5 on Monday, and then 280 on Friday for 3 sets of 5. And then Wednesday, you would only you just add 5 pounds to this and do 220. So I'll present another option, and this is what I do for most people, because most people in these franchise gyms are not lifters, but they really enjoy lifting, and this is a good way to just kind of like prolong your progress. So actually, I still recommend this even if you are a lifter, because you're just gonna be able to run this for a longer period of time. The previous example, you're probably only gonna make like 2 weeks of progress doing that before you have to make another change. So you may as well just jump ahead a couple weeks, make this change, and then you can run this template for like, 3 to 5 weeks, depending on the person. But in this example, we've got a heavy day on Monday, a light day on Wednesday, and a medium day on Friday. Pretty classic heavy, light, medium setup. And then all you're gonna do is just add 5 pounds once a week to each one of these workouts. And if you check out a channel like Andy Baker, I'll probably make some videos like this too, but you can sort of organize this in such a way that rather than just doing a lighter version of the same movement, you can also swap out the movements on these days. So you could do like a box squat here and like a pin squat here or like a safety bar squat or something like that, just to break up the monotony a little bit. But personally, I don't recommend doing that right off the bat in this stage. I recommend waiting a bit longer, running this out first and then running something like that. And I'll outline that in a different video. But that's your 28-year-old male squat protocol. So, if this happens to you, regardless of the numbers, this is the step I recommend that you take. And then after this, so let's say you run this and it lasts for like 6 weeks, right? So you made 30 pounds of gains on each of these lifts. So now you're at 295, 245, and 270. So now your overall stress has gone up here, right? Now this workout was super grindy. So now what are you gonna do the next week? Simplest thing to do, the easiest change, just switch to 3 sets of 3 at 300, and then just add 5 to these workouts as well. So now you're doing 3 sets of 3. Let's say you run that for like 2 or 3 weeks. It's probably not gonna last much longer than that. All right, so now you're at like 3, you did 305 and it was super grindy. So for 310, we're just gonna do 3 doubles there. And then you do that for 2 weeks, and then like 315 was super grindy, so now you're gonna do 3 singles at 320, right? And then you can do like 3 singles at 325, or you can just like test a 1 rep max at that point if you're feeling kind of like you just want a full send. But that's the idea. You switch to a once a week template, and then on the heavy day, you taper the reps down. So you do triples for a little bit, then you, when that gets heavy, like or grindy, you think you're gonna fail, go to doubles, and when you think you're gonna fail that, go to singles, and then you can kind of test a 1 rep max if you want. But that'll, like just by doing that, we went from having a super heavy day here, and then we added, 60 more pounds to the squat through that process, which will last, 1 to 3 months depending on the person, something like that. So here's a squat example, and this time the demographic is a little bit different. I have 28-year-old female / 50-plus-year-old male. The ages are kind of like arbitrary in a sense. It's basically just like woman / like older guy, because they tend to respond kind of similarly a lot of the time. But what we have here is the squats, 3 sets of 5 at 100, 3 sets of 5 at 105, 3 sets of 5 at 110. We're assuming that this one gets grindy. And this is going to present itself a little bit differently. So for the guy in the previous example, he's probably going to be doing like this Monday will be slow, Wednesday gets even slower, Friday gets even slower, right? So like the reps are just kind of getting progressively slower and grindier over time. Whereas this person, these workouts might be fine, and then like all of a sudden, this workout gets like super heavy and grindy. And that's just because it's stalling for a different reason. So in the previous example, that guy is slowing down because he's not recovering enough, or / it's like too stressful. And so this person now is stalling because it's not stressful enough. And so there are ways that we can make it more stressful. So you'll notice in this example here, I've made a very small change. I just went from 3 sets of 5 to 5 sets of 3. So we're still getting 15 total reps, and we're gonna be able to add weight to the bar this way, which is our goal. So we're adding weight on Monday and Friday, just like the previous example, except this Wednesday now, we're doing 3 sets of 5, and it's gonna be 90%, so 105, so like a very small drop off. If I go all the way down to like 95 for 3 sets of 5, this low weight is just like overall not stressful enough for this person. So if I drop it even lower, then it's just gonna continue to not generate enough stress, and they're just gonna slide backwards. We're gonna have to kind of like restart and regroup from there. So this is like a pretty safe bet. And like none of these templates are gonna work 100% of the time. This is just like, for most people, this is a pretty safe bet and it's probably gonna work. And then from here, what you can do is kind of spread out the days a little bit more. So let's say you run this for like 2 weeks, it works pretty well. And then 2 weeks in the future here, we've got 135. So 5 sets of 3 at 135 on Monday, right? And then this day has climbed all the way up to where it's now like 125 for 5 sets of 3. So instead of doing that here, I'm actually just gonna move that over to this day, 5 sets of 3 at 125. And then I'll do like, since it's just like a 10-pound offset, I'll keep it simple. And then I'll do 3 sets of 5 at another 10-pound offset, 115. So this is like another week in between these ones. So in this week in between, you do 125, 130 right there, and this was 115. So this was 3 sets of 5, that was 5 sets of 3. And now in this week, you've got 5 sets of 3 here, 3 sets of 5 here, 5 sets of 3 here, and your stress has increased over time. And now this is your weekly template, so you're adding 5 pounds a week to these lifts right here. And then branching out from here, you have a couple different options. So once this day starts to get pretty slow, and also these kind of jumps are not gonna last as long for this person as they will for the previous person, just because the weight, the 5-pound increase is a greater percentage of the overall weight, so they're gonna stall more quickly. So this might only last like a week or 2 with this current template here. So like once it does change, you can change to something like 3 sets of 3 on the heavy day. So let's say you get to like, 140 was super grindy in this week in between. So now this next week that we added 5 pounds, now we're at 145 and we do 3 sets of 3 instead of 5 sets of 3, right? And then these have gone up in the meantime. This just continues to increase by 5 pounds like the previous example as well. And then after the 3 sets of 3 gets super grindy, we can do the same thing that we did with the previous guy, except you're probably only going to get like 1 week out of each of these. So 3 sets of 3 at 145. Then the very next week, you can just go right to like 3 doubles at 150, and then you can do like 3 singles at 155. So we stalled initially around like 110, and now in this example, we've gone up, 40-ish, 45 pounds. Now we're at 155, and then you can make your next steps from there. But the overarching goal for this person is that you don't want to decrease your stress a whole bunch like the younger male, because your problem is not that you're not recovering enough. Your problem is that your program is just not stressful enough. So you just need to increase the stress and do more work. So here's a deadlift example, back to our 28-year-old male right now. So this is our last week of the NLP. 1 set of 5 at 290, 1 set at 295, 1 set of 5 at 300. This one was like super hellish and grindy and it sucked. So on this Monday right here, we're gonna back down about 80% and do 1 to 3 sets of 5. I like to err more on like the 2 or 3 sets of 5 range, because you're already adapted to 1 set of 5 at this point for the deadlift, and it's going to be significantly lighter. So like 2 or 3 sets of 5, that's a new stimulus. This Wednesday right here, we just take the deadlift out altogether. Not even going to do it. We're going to do chin-ups. You can also do lat pull-downs. I can make a video on how to progress that, but then you're going to start progressing those on this day. And then for your Friday, then you add weight, 1 set of 5 at 305. And this one's very straightforward. You're just going to add 5 pounds to these once a week. This is a little bit different based off, whether you're doing chins or lat pulls. And then once it gets really heavy, the same rules apply. This just goes from 1 set of 5 to only 1 set of 3. And then I like to just jump right from like a set of 3 to a single. And then if you're doing just a single, I like to do like another set of 5 at like probably this same weight, or like 80% or something like that. But that can run your deadlift up for a good period of time. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. So here's an example of how to make progress for our woman/old guy counterpart. For the deadlift, let's say they do 120, 125, 130. This is 1 set of 5 last week at the NLP. The first change I'd make is go to 2 triples at 135 here. So we're still making a 5-pound jump, but now we're doing 2 triples instead of 1 set of 5. Then on this day, we're going to approach it kind of like the squat. We're going to do a lighter day at about 90%. So this is 3 sets of 3 at 120. So it's an increase in volume. So that's going to be an increase in stress. And then Friday, we just add 5 pounds from this Monday. So we're adding weight twice a week. We go from 135 up to 140. And then let's assume like before you run this for like 2 weeks and then it stalls out, right? So then once you're at that point, let's say you've done 140, 150. Then the week after, 2 triples at 155. You've made a 5-pound jump on this previous week and then this week. So you're doing 3 sets of 3 at 130. So now you got a bigger gap between these two numbers, right? So then on this day, on Friday, you can do another either 2 triples or 3 triples. It's kind of up to you. Depends on the lifter. And then you can reset this percentage to about 90%. So like something like 140. So the idea is just you've gone from sets of 5 to triples to increase the intensity. And now you're doing 2 of them here, 3 of them at like a lighter weight here, and then 2 to 3 at like a medium weight right here. Another option for this demographic, rather than doing, the 2 sets of 3 and then deadlifting 3 days a week, which I am a fan of, another option is to change this deadlift right here into a rack pull. So on Monday, we're going to do a rack pull, which is automatically heavier than a deadlift because you're pulling from higher up. It's partial range of motion. So the idea is you're just going to make this your heavy pull now. You're going to increase the stress here, run this bad boy up. So you can start with 1 set of 5 and just add 5 pounds, go right to 135. So you went from a deadlift 1 set of 5 at 130 to a rack pull 1 set of 5 at 135. And then you can program like a light and a medium deadlift like we had before. So you could do 3 sets of 3 at like 110 or 115 or something. And then on this Friday, you can do 2 to 3 sets of 3 at like 90%, so like 125. Right here, you just have like a 10-pound offset between each lift in this example. But yeah, that's another way to do it. So by adding the rack pull, you're increasing the stress because you can lift more weight with that one. So if you just want the person or if you are the person, if you just want to feel like heavier weight on that day, that's one way to do it, because you can run that up and have a lot of runway in front of you. All right, so here's an example of how to make progress on the only lifts anyone cares about, the press and the bench. And I have written here everyone, because basically like everyone can kind of run the same protocol. Because like I was saying before, with your different demographics for squat and deadlift, people kind of stall for different reasons. So generally if you're younger and more male, your weight will run up higher, and you're going to start stalling on those lifts because of a lack of recovery or too much stress. And the upper body, for just about everybody, you're going to stall just because it's not stressful enough. And so every now and then you'll get like one guy out of 100 or 200 or something that has a very strong upper body, and you have to add light days and stuff. But like for 99% of people, you just have to increase the workload for upper body. So here's an example of how to do that. So the last week of this person's NLP, they did a bench on Monday, 3 sets of 5 at 185, a press on Wednesday, 3 sets of 5 at 135, and a bench on Friday, 3 sets of 5 at 190. So let's pretend that these two workouts got super grindy. So from there, I'm just going to switch right to this template here, which is like very similar to the Texas method template in practical programming. There's just like a couple small changes. The first main change is that this intensity day is 3 sets of 3 instead of 1 set of 5. I just find that 5s for 99% of people are not intense enough on the intensity day. So I just go right to 3s, get it, so it can get heavier. And then the middle day is not a light day. It's the same weight as the volume day, but just with one fewer set. So I'm basically treating these 2 weeks as my jug of stress here that I'm trying to fill up. So anyways, week 1, all of this is calculated off of this PR jump on the Friday. So I have here written 137.5 or 140. It's kind of up to your own personal judgment. I find that for people that press and it stalls out like anywhere lower than like the high 100s or even like around 200, it's easier if you make 2.5 pound jumps. It kind of just prolongs it for a longer period of time, and it's less frustrating that way. So I would go with 137.5 personally, and then calculate this based off that. So 120 is like somewhere around 85% of that. That's going to be our first volume day, and we're just going to do 5 sets of 5 there. So it's a 5x5 volume day, and then a 3x3 heavy day right here. And then the same thing here for bench. So the heavy day is 195 for bench. It's a 3x3 heavy day. The volume day is about 85% at a 5x5. And then this corresponding middle day, which is not really a light day, is the same weight as the volume day, just for 4 sets of 5, just to get more reps in between, because you're still alternating press, bench, press, bench, press, bench. This is still a 3-day-a-week template right here. And then same thing for this press. Same weight as that volume day at 120. Yeah, same weight. 4 sets of 5. That's what I meant to say. Sorry, it's a long video at this point. And then you would progress all of this by adding weight every 2 weeks. So like you just take the whole dang thing, copy and paste, and then you add weight to each of these workouts. So if you're adding 2.5 to your presses, then this in this workout would go up 2.5, and this one too. And then these workouts would each go up 5 on like a 2-week basis. So you're adding 5 pounds or 2.5 pounds every 2 weeks to your PR lift, which seems really slow, but your upper body is just not going to make as much progress, and like realistically the progress has to slow down. And 5 pounds every 2 weeks is still like 10 pounds a month. So if you're able to prolong that for, like 6 months or something like that, that's like 60 pounds. So if your bench stalled here at 190 and you had 60 pounds in 6 months, then you're at 250. That's like a ton of progress. And most people are not going to even have that good of progress. Much more realistically, in 6 months, you're going to wind up somewhere around like 225 if you stalled out here. And I plan to make a whole bunch more programming videos on what to do after this stage. I don't recommend that you start specializing in press or bench at this point for most people. I still recommend try to make them both go up on this every other kind of split. And then after that point, then you can specialize in one or the other. Because I think at this point, they still have a lot of carryover to each other. And it's not until you get pretty advanced on them that you start having to specialize in order to make one go up without the other. Oh, and then I already erased the board. But for those upper body lifts, you can take the same concept and run those out. So once the 3x3 gets heavy, make the heavy day 3x2 and then 3 singles. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful. I think it will be, because most people kind of tend to fall apart at the end of the NLP. The NLP is very straightforward, and then after that is where things get kind of, more gray. no pun intended. But yeah, you can use these templates to, prolong your NLP by another few months or so, depending on the person. But yeah, that's it. All right. Have a great day, pal.